Today we're going to be talking about choosing the right early childhood education option for your kids in South Austin. I'm Cherie Smith. I'm the owner of the Little Blue Montessori School, and I'm joined by Stephanie Ward. She is the director of the school. So we're just going to kind of chat about our experience with choosing childcare for our kids, and then also in a context of Montessori versus daycare versus the different types that you could choose. So I personally have two kids who are 5 and 6, and I've been in South Austin since 2012. So I've kind of done the gamut of childcare options. Like I've done a little preschool that met in a church. I've done a home Montessori program. I've had my kids at Cedars Montessori School, which is over past the Oak Hill Y. And my son now is in public school at Newton Collins. And my daughter obviously is at Little Blue. So lots of different ways that I've done childcare that I can speak kind of personally to. And then Stephanie has 4 kids. I'll let you talk a little bit about what you've been through.
So I also, like Cherie, have my kiddos. They all went through Montessori school for toddler and primary. So that's 18 months to 6 years old. Mm-hmm. And it was incredible. We don't have as a wide range as you have for childcare options. Mm-hmm. But we did an in-home nanny share for a while before they were old enough to go to toddler. So we did that. We went through toddler and primary, and then we eventually transferred to our magnet public school that was in our neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know, like, for me, I was kind of like sprung into motherhood, like, oh, Roland's being born, surprise.
Right.
And so I don't know if I had like a lot of forethought into like what I would do for childcare. I just kind of like winged it. And
that's
learned.
pretty common. I think parents are like, there are so many different options to childcare, and it's hard to know like what is best, right? And so sometimes you have to kind of try it out and see like, oh, this fits with my family, or this, is not resonating, and maybe I need to look at something different.
Yeah, I think like we just literally stumbled into Montessori because it was COVID, and there was a home Montessori program that was very small. In like I could walk to it from my house. There was a former guide from Austin Montessori School who lived in the neighborhood, and she just was like, I'm going to take 4 children.
That's amazing.
And so Sage ended up going there, and I just was like so impressed by, she was so little. She was like maybe 18 months. I think she was a little smaller than that. She was teeny tiny. Mm-hmm. She wasn't potty trained, nothing. And she would just come home like so regulated. And when she was there, the guide potty trained her. Mm-hmm. Like I did nothing.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
And I was just really impressed, like watching that teacher, the way that she taught Sage was like, whoa, this is clearly different than some of the other styles.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say the word taught, because, in Montessori, they don't call the teachers, they call them guides.
Yes.
Because the children are essentially teaching themselves. Like the adult is there in the prepared environment for them to guide the children to their highest potential, to follow the children's natural instincts, and then guide them into like a learning pattern with what naturally interests them. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that Sage's guide was probably observing, very aware that Sage was developmentally ready for toileting, and kind of set the stage for Sage to learn that on her own, and guided her to independent toileting, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's I think really what it was like, oh, Sage has a lot of like autonomy in her own choices, and she's like feeling empowered about potty training, because she's like, I got this, and just came easily that way, as opposed to like, you will sit down on the potty type of training.
Which is also a thing people do, but I do find it's best, having taught in the classroom for 17 years, it's best when you follow the child's lead. And that is what I love about Montessori so much, is that it really allows them to just showcase who they are as a person and build upon that.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Okay, we can talk about Montessori all day, obviously, because we're both obsessed with it and we both work at a Montessori school. So getting back on topic a little bit, I think there's a lot of different things you have to consider when you're picking childcare. The style is definitely one of them.
Right.
The other main ones would probably be cost, location.
Well, that, yes. I was thinking, you can kind of split it up into, like, when you're thinking about what is the best choice for my child, you can kind of split it up into two different things. The first one being cost, the practical things, cost, location. Whenever I talk to parents about, hey, how do you know you like a place? How do you know this is the right fit for you? It's like, you need to look at teacher retention. How long have the teachers been there? Are they happy there? If your teachers are happy, they've been there a long time, then you know that the students will be well taken care of. You want to look at the actual space. Is it safe? Do you feel comfortable there I think Little Blue does a lot of work, and most Montessori schools do, about preparing not just the child, but the whole family for entering into like an educational community. So we do like a walkthrough, right? To make sure everyone knows the space. We do tours even before then. You meet the teacher so that you're comfortable with the adults in the classroom. And I think that is all really important when choosing a space is do you feel comfortable there? Because as an adult and a parent, if you don't feel comfortable, your child isn't going to feel comfortable. So that is one of the key pieces that you want to look at as well. And then the other side of that is the pedagogy, the curriculum, like what type of school resonates with your family? Like what does the school align with your family's values? Because home and school are a partnership. And if you have different values and the school does, it's going to be really hard to educate that child. It's going to lead to distrust. And it's probably at the end just not going to be a really good fit. So make sure that the educational, the curriculum, the pedagogy, that all of that really aligns with your family and who you are and who you want your child to be.
Yeah. Like what do they do to resolve conflict when the kids have conflict?
Yeah, that's a really big
Ask that
one.
question.
Yeah.
And like some of these things you're talking about, when you go and tour a place, you can certainly ask the director, the owner, whoever's giving the tour, like you can ask them all these questions. Ask them, how long have your teachers been here? How do they get paid? Do they get benefits? Yeah, these kind of questions about what do you do if there's a conflict between two children? All of those things, you make sure you're asking that. And like you mentioned, the vibe of the place is just like, you can kind of feel the vibe at most places you go into. You're watching the teachers with the kids, like, how are they with them? Do they look more like disciplinarian? Do they look more like relaxed? They're probably not going to be on their phones while you're touring.
Let's hope not.
Do they look disengaged?
Right.
That kind of stuff. I think when I went and toured, there was one school in South Austin I toured. I went in and I just was like, something is off here. Like the vibe just like hit me for that school. And I remember when I left, I started crying.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that would be a sign. Maybe that's not a good fit.
I knew that was not the one, because I was like, I don't think that this is the right feel for my family. But there are a lot of kids in the neighborhood who go to that school and didn't get that same vibe. And like, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that school. There was nothing I could pick up on that was like, I don't like that they do this concrete thing.
Yeah.
It was just like, I could tell something was off for me, for my family.
You have to honor that feeling. Like parents know, parent intuition is really important. The other thing I was going to say is if you're looking at a Montessori school, if you decide, you know what, I want to go to Montessori school, this is the route that I want to take for my child. You have to be very careful because Montessori isn't trademarked. There isn't just like an overarching, accreditation. Anybody can start a school and just throw the name. This is Montessori school, and you have no idea what you're actually getting. So if you choose to go the Montessori route, you really have to, ask whoever's giving the tour, like, what kind of education do the teachers have? Are they actually, Montessori trained? You might have to have a little background knowledge on that, like what types of Montessori training are there, which ones are most widely accepted. And that will also give you, I think, a good peace of mind knowing that you are choosing an authentic Montessori school. And that's why I feel, Little Blue I'm so proud that we do offer authentic Montessori education. Because all of our lead guides are AMI or AMS trained, and that is something that's really important for me to uphold, Montessori values.
Yeah, those are the big ones. If you're looking at Montessori schools, ask whoever's giving the tour, are the guides AMI or AMS certified? Those are the big two widely accepted ones that you want. Those are pretty rigorous.
Well, it is the equivalent of a master's.
Yeah.
So it is very rigorous, having gone through it myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was very challenging, but I can say it was probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. It completely changed who I was as a person, changed who I was as a parent, and really set my family on a beautiful path. Mm-hmm. So that's important to ask as well.
Yeah, because there's a lot of Montessori schools in South Austin that are what we call Montessori-ish. Montessomethings. And so their guides are maybe not trained in those two ways. And not to say that teacher is going to not be a good teacher.
Right.
It's just, if you feel like, for me and my family, the right way to go is Montessori, then that's what you're going to want to look into.
You want to make sure that that's what your child is receiving, for sure. So.
And if you're choosing a different childcare option, like you're going the daycare route or some other type of early childhood education, I think you can ask similar questions, like what are the backgrounds of the teachers? Do the teachers have college degrees? Do the teachers have a lot of experience with children?
Right.
Do
they have a base understanding of just early childhood in general?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily have to look like I have a bachelor's in early childhood education. It's like, are they parents? Because you do want someone that can also relate, to what you're going through. And that is also to say, just because someone isn't a parent doesn't mean that they're not a wonderful educator as well.
Yeah.
But there are various ways to have that experience that I think a teacher needs to teach a child. So, yeah.
I could go to a list of questions a little bit. So I think we went through most of it. Yeah.
I think one big question that people have is, if I put my child in a Montessori school for, their early childhood education, oftentimes, Montessori schools don't go past primary, right? So they go through the kindergarten year, and then it's like, where does my child go now? Yes. Right? What is the next step?
I'm struggling with this currently.
Where do I go? And I can confidently say, after, transferring all 4 of my children from Montessori to public school, it was okay. You're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. It is different, and I think it really depends on the child, but I think that Montessori education really lays a beautiful groundwork for being able to be flexible and for children to be able to take what they need from the environment that they're in and learn to the best of their ability.
Yeah. And to be able to advocate for themselves.
Absolutely.
That in the classroom.
Really important. Yeah. And honestly, Montessori kiddos, at least it was experienced with my children, are just so far advanced. When they pop into first grade, they're like, oh, I've already done this. I think the hardest challenge for my son was he cried because he couldn't write in cursive anymore. They made him write in print. Mm-hmm. And that was the big thing. Yeah. But other than that, everyone just, it was seamless, and they have that groundwork for being in community already. It's not their first time being with their peers. They have all of that knowledge on how to relate to other children, and although those social skills that are so important, they've already they've already learned all those things, and so they can transfer into this new environment that's different than what they know, but still they can still be confident and successful.
Okay, I think something important to explore when we're talking about choosing where you want to send your child is also like, there are a ton of reasons you would not pick Montessori. Like, let's be clear on that. We're biased, but like, you probably wouldn't pick Montessori if it doesn't, a lot of times the hours may not work for, if you have a really long work schedule, like you start at 7:30 a.m. work. A lot of times Montessori schools do not start until 8:30 and they end at a regular school day and don't have aftercare options. Depends on which one, of course. But like, if you need childcare from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., it's probably not going to be available in Montessori.
Yeah, I think it just kind of depends, because Montessori is so grounded in, following the child and what is best for them. And I think that being gone from home for so long during the day is very challenging for a young child.
Yeah.
Right.
Very challenging. But that being said,
right,
we understand that that is the reality for a lot of parents. And if you need that, that's okay too, of course. But like, I'm just saying, usually that's one of the main things we get at Little Blue is our hours don't work out with the family.
Yeah.
Another thing is going to be the cost. Montessori school will always be more expensive than daycare just because of the level of training that the guides have. And then usually they're getting paid a lot more than a daycare teacher would get paid. And so there's just more expenses.
And I think you see
Montessori.
that a lot. And that I think is also why asking about teacher retention and teacher turnover is so important. I'm sure everyone's heard that there's like, an educator crisis, right? People are fleeing education right now because they're not being well cared for, right? Like they can make more money doing something else. The stress is too much. And so that is why I recommend parents ask about that, because that if teachers are staying and they're happy, then that routine and that consistency for the children that is so important at this age will stay the same. There's not going to be a rotating cast of adults in and out of their lives. And routine and consistency really helps a child feel safe, because they can come in the school in the morning and know exactly what to expect, and they know who's going to be there. And so it's all one big circle, right? Like everything is dependent on everything else. And so that is it's really important as well to ask those things. Yeah.
Another reason you might not choose Montessori would be, so a lot of times Montessori schools are a little bit smaller, like they don't have like a big corporate structure or a lot of like admin staff available. So if your child is neurodiverse, like is tending to have some like special challenges and special needs, sometimes Montessori might not be the perfect fit because we don't have as many resources to help that child as a large school.
And I think yes and no. Yeah, for sure.
It depends. It's very based on the situation.
Well, and that is, also a positive of Montessori is that we follow the child and we're able to meet them where they're at in their development. But the other side of that is that we will be very honest if we feel like your child's in a community that isn't best serving their needs, right? And that is in an effort to honor the child and follow where they are. That is something that we will say. So we would never keep a child in our school because it fills a spot, right? Like we will say, you know what, we know that this is not the best space for them. Here's what we've observed that this child needs to succeed in an educational environment. And here are some options, here's some resources, that we can guide you to. And in that situation, truly the public school system is really wonderful for providing that kind of support that they need, that families need, and that students need. So I think it's important that Montessori schools work in collaboration with their local public school as well, and kind of forge those relationships, because there will undoubtedly be a time where you may need to collaborate in that way.
Yeah, and I can speak to this personally. My son probably wasn't the best fit for Montessori, which as like he's my first kid. I did not really like understand that until he was older, and now he's in public school, which is like a much more structured environment. Whereas Montessori is more like the child can choose a lot of things. Roland just really needed a lot more structure and order than he wasn't really thriving in Montessori. He's doing a lot better in public school. So like,
and it's okay. It's okay.
Which I'm totally cool with. I just
Right,
want him to be like, where is the best place for him? And it's funny, like as someone who was like super obsessed with Montessori and like open to Montessori school, that I have a kid that it just doesn't work out well for
one
him.
Of my children, and it was like it was hard as a parent, especially being a Montessori guide for so long, to realize like this isn't working for her. But I think that is part of being a good parent, and having good guides to be able to like comfort you and come to that realization, like, hey, our job is to provide your child the absolute best, and that may not be us, and that's okay. So that I think is another, pro for Montessori, is that we're going to do whatever's best for your child, even if it's not us.
Yeah. Which, by the way, very hard to hear as a parent when the guides and staff are coming to you like, I don't think that this is the best fit for your child,
It is.
It took a lot of growth as a parent to be like,
but we're there to walk you through it. We're there to hold your hand and kind of help you through the process. The other thing that I was thinking on this is Montessori, I think, is so different than traditional education, and that is where do your family values align with Montessori values? Because if they don't, then this may not be a good fit for you. And that looks like a lot of independence. The child has a lot of independence, and if that's not something a parent is comfortable with, it may not be the best, and that's okay. That may not be the right fit. But I really encourage parents, if they're considering Montessori, to read up on it a little bit. Talk to the school staff where you're thinking about sending your child, and make sure that you fully understand the curriculum and the expectations. Because like I said before, it really is a partnership, and you can see the difference when, parents and families and schools are just, aligned and together for the best of the child, and when there's a little hesitation, when there's a little uncertainty. So make sure that your values align with Montessori values.
One other thing I've noticed a lot lately with other families who have kids my age is the importance of the location of the school. Like I
think it's an Austin thing too.
You may love Cedars Montessori School. I did. I loved it. It was amazing. If I could have kept my kids there forever, I would have. But it was a 40-minute drive from my house. And doing that for drop off and pickup, day in and day out, like we did it for a year and a half.
I just can't believe you did.
And just don't do that. Like if you don't visit any schools that are more than a 30-minute drive from your house, because it could be the most amazing school ever, but like you are going to regret it. And I see this with my real estate clients. They're sending their kids somewhere like over in West Austin, and they are driving an hour, and they're like, I got to sell my house. Like I have to move. Sure, if you want to go to that school and you can move over near that school, do it. But like, just don't underestimate the importance of proximity to your home.
That is really important. And I think that, living close to where your child goes to school enables you to create a really strong community. And I see that a lot at Little Blue, because the majority of our families at our Easton Park campus live in Easton Park. And it's so fun to hear stories. They get together more often outside of school hours. They have parent play dates and kid play dates. And I think the foundation of a strong school is a strong community. And parents play such a huge role in that. And so, like you said, no one's going to want to drive to a play date that's 40 minutes away, right? You're just not going to go. And so you're missing out on those opportunities to create community. And that is, like I said, that is the foundation for a wonderful school, is having a robust, thriving parent community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's some other little stuff that you obviously want to think about, like, does the school provide lunch, snacks? Like, that could be important for some parents. Just the monotony of having to pack the lunch and the snacks every day can get a lot sometimes. But a lot of times if the place provides food, it could be add to the costs, that sort of thing.
It can, yeah. Or it may not be what your family prefers to eat. You have to take food allergies into consideration.
Yeah.
So those are all, important things to think about.
Yeah. And just another little small piece, but yeah, I think we covered a lot of the things to consider when you're picking. Yeah, any other things you want to?
I don't think so. I think we touched on everything and more.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to have a lot of other videos in this library. So, lots of other topics to explore here, but hopefully this was helpful. If you're a new parent and you're trying to figure out where the heck to send your little baby to childcare.